Mabu, hi everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Puso to Puso podcast, where the Lambda class interns interview healthcare professionals. My name is Kara, pronouns she, her, hers.
My name is Michelle, pronouns she, her, hers.
My name is Caitlin, pronouns she, her, hers. And today we have Audrey with us today. And she is currently a dermatology physician assistant, and she creates and posts amazing content on her platforms, Instagram and TikTok and so on. So thank you for being with us today, Audrey.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is my first podcast. I'm so excited.
So why don't we start off with you giving some background information about yourself. So your career, schooling, anything else you'd like us to know?
Yeah, so I am a dermatology physician assistant. I was raised in Georgia. Even though I was born in Canada, I was pretty much raised all my life in Georgia. I lived close to Atlanta growing up, and at undergrad, I stayed in the state and went to the University of Georgia, and I studied dietetics. And there in that small town, I got to work at a few nonprofit clinics, and I found the role of a physician assistant, and went to PA school in Georgia too. Yeah.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Yeah.
UGA is an awesome school, like go dogs. But
Yeah, go dogs.
yeah, so now we're gonna move on to some other questions. So the first question is, what was your journey to your career like? And basically, how did you get to where you are today? I know you went over like schooling and stuff, but like what specific parts of your journey would you like to share?
Yeah, I guess my journey, I did know what PAs were in high school, and I thought there was only like medicine, which included just dentistry, pharmacy, nursing, or being a doctor. And my first year in college, I was so overwhelmed because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and everyone around me was pre med, and was horrible at chemistry. I really struggled my first year, and I did fail my first test, and somehow I stayed in the class, and I was like so close to dropping, but I finished the school year, and my GPA was the lowest after my first year in college. And I was really discouraged, and I ended up just doing an internship at my local doctor's office, just to get some experience and to stay busy. And that's where I found the PA role. I didn't really get serious about like hours and all the other things until like my end of my sophomore year. So yeah, I think it's and hopefully I can encourage anyone like in your club or listening that you don't have to know what you want to do your first day in college. And you can, I have friends who consider PA school even in their like last or years after college too. So you guys have lots of time.
Thank you so much. That was super helpful. I know a lot of us are kind of in limbo right now, especially being college students, and it's definitely reassuring to know that we don't have to know what we want to do in the future.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the next question. So, what made you interested in the healthcare field in general, and what do you enjoy most about your job right now as a PA?
I think what made me the most interested in working in healthcare was that I knew I couldn't see myself working behind like a desk all day. And I really wanted to, I don't know, I guess impact people's lives in a way where it's tangible and I get to make connections. And I feel like working in healthcare was one of the ways where I feel like I could do that. I was also interested not in chemistry, but like in other sciences. I was more like a bio kind of person. And my background was dietetics, which a lot of people become dietitians through that degree. And so I kind of wanted to be that practitioner who can incorporate like diet into kind of the whole, like, I guess medicine as a whole. I wish I could say I do that every day, but working in dermatology, there are some ways where I can, but it's not all the time, but it's a good background I have. So I think one of the most important things is that I love like the patient like relationships that I get to form, and I don't think you can do that as similarly like at a desk job, which is fine.
Yeah.
Some people don't like doing one or the other, but I knew I didn't fit into that like 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 like cubicle job. That just wasn't me.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So on to our next question. What is your typical day in your workplace?
So my typical day is I start clinic at 8 and I head into work. Our mornings are usually a lot busier, and working in dermatology, the best part of my job and my specialty is that almost every patient I see, I'm doing some kind of procedure. So I feel like I'm just always keeping myself busy. And it's a lot of like routine skin exams or people who's had skin cancers, people who are at high risk to get skin cancers if it's in their family, people who are concerned about certain moles. And then it can range to like rashes, to acne, to surgeries. And surgeries that I do in my scope of practice in the state of Georgia is I I remove like skin cancers that are in parts of the area that I'm comfortable removing. Like the arms are really common, backs, lower legs. And when it goes to the face, or there's any kind of skin cancer on the face, which is a really common area, or any kind of like skin area or skin sparing, we call it skin sparing, meaning that we don't want to take off too much skin because it's a cosmetically important area. Um, I defer those skin cancers that I find from biopsies to my doctor, who's a Mohs surgeon. Mohs means micrographic surgery in the simplest terms. And he's able to take a smaller piece, which is better for like the face, where you don't want to get a big chunk, right? And he takes a look at each piece under the microscope, and sees if that area is clear or not. And once they're clear, we decide if we want to close the wound or let it heal on its own. So yeah, I do a little bit of surgery too, but it's a lot of, my main days include just a lot of clinic, running around, doing procedures, a lot of biopsies. And we do some cosmetics too. We do microneedling, Botox, dry ice peels, and sclerotherapy for varicose veins. So it's very procedure heavy working in derm, but it's really fun. My hours are 8 till like 5-ish. Sometimes I leave earlier if I get done earlier. My Fridays are half days right now, which is pretty sweet.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was very informative. Also, procedures you do and what you experience. And I know it must be really difficult during these times. So we're really grateful to have you on our podcast. I'll pass it back to Kara. Kara.
Okay, so for our next question, so obviously right now the state of the world's kind of crazy and overwhelming. So what keeps you motivated when work or life in general kind of gets a bit overwhelming or a bit too much for you to take sometimes?
Yeah, I do. I will say this last year has been one of the hardest years. I wish I could say I have 20 years of experience, but I'm coming up to my 3-year like anniversary as a certified PA. And last year was really hard with the pandemic and everything. And you can definitely get burned out at work too. And what I do is I think it's really good to have someone to vent to, whether it's your best friend, a family member, or your partner. I thankfully have a really great partner. He's also in medicine. Your partner doesn't, or your best friend or family member doesn't have to be in medicine, but it actually has been really helpful because he's been understanding of, some like hard days I have, and we're able to really just like understand each other.
Mhm.
And yeah, just picking up a hobby. Like for me, it's been getting a camera, going on YouTube, and just kind of like talking and like sharing my day, even though I seem like I do nothing. It's just, maybe like me showing a procedure, gets someone interested in my field, and then some days you just have to like shower, like get on the couch and watch Netflix and eat pizza. And I do that at least once a week. And if you're of age, drink a glass of wine.
Thank you for sharing. That was super helpful, super
Yeah.
insightful as well. And then kind of building off of that question, how do you manage your time in your occupation and your other involvements like posting on TikTok or Instagram?
Yeah, so I will say I'm really bad at this. So I made an Instagram with two of my best friends in PA school, and we kept up with it until graduation, but like I was so, and even in college, like you guys look so calm and relaxed. Like I was a mess and I was always anxious. And PA school was just the same. It's hard. And I got burned out by posting. And I feel like everyone on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube a lot of times, but I really think Instagram, they really have this facade that everything's perfect and every photo is like filtered and you have to have like the longest quote and everything. And it's almost sometimes really hard to keep up with that. So I've recently had to like take a step back and be like, hey, like I'm going to post when I'm happy and when I want to. And I really need to make sure that I'm doing this from a good place and not feel burdened by it. Which I certainly, can feel like. And I think that's normal for anyone. But I do carve out some time to at least try to film some things. And if I can at least put a video out once a week for YouTube, I try to. But like recently, like I was really good with keeping up with it every week until last week with the whole thing that happened in Atlanta and the Atlanta shooting. I just needed some time for myself and I just didn't want to post and I didn't. But yeah, I guess my time management is like when I'm out of work, I just try to focus on maybe some social media, but there are days when I don't even want to do social media. So I don't really have like an agenda. I have some brands that email me and they're like, hey, like, do you want to collab? And like, we'll do this, this, and this. And I genuinely like didn't want to be the person that posts something for a few extra bucks and I don't believe in the product. So everything that I get, I tell people, I'm like, I'm going to try it out for a month. If I see results, then I'll share it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I haven't really done any kind of brand postings. Yeah.
Sharing. I think it's really important that people hear from like a healthcare professional that it's important to take time for yourself. Yeah.
For sure.
So, building off of something that you just mentioned, given the recent rise of anti-Asian American hate, what do you think that we as pre-health and health professionals can do to better serve the Asian community?
Yeah. I think that it's really important for us in this role to help kind of educate our patients, right? And I think, yes, like we want to make an impact in the Asian community, but I think it's more so educating people who don't look like us. And like I said, I love my job. I love my patients. I do work in, I would say, a bit more rural setting than Atlanta because I work an hour from Atlanta. Um, I love my patients dearly, but a lot of them don't see people who look like me, right? I am a Korean American girl, and a lot of them live in rural areas. A lot of them live in farms in these deserts, not like physical deserts, but like, like food deserts, etc. And they always ask me, they're like, hey, like, where are you from? And I try to like change that question and I say, I was raised in Georgia, but I was born in Canada, but my parents are both from South Korea, right? And so I just kind of educate them in a way where it's hopefully gonna be engraved in them, so they know how to ask the next person they see that looks like me.
Mhm.
And when there is with this uprising of a lot of this like Asian hate and a lot of these prejudices and like acts that I know have like ulterior motives that are probably due to some like racist bias or whatever it may be, I definitely stand up to it and I definitely call it out. And like, in my office culture, like thankfully my doctor, he doesn't look like me. He's the opposite of me. Like he was born in South Florida, but he definitely acknowledges that like he always tells me, he was like, when I was in medical school, we didn't have any females, let alone anyone who wasn't Caucasian, right?
Mhm.
And he definitely understands the struggles that people of color go through, including me. When the whole BML over to BLM, sorry, what am I saying? Movement was going on last year and even until this year, like he was very passionate about it and brought it up in a very like black and white kind of work culture that my office can be. But I think it really just takes educating your coworkers, your patients, You don't have to like force it in someone's face, but like in a polite way, like correct people, right?
Mhm.
People look at me and they're like, how do you say your last name? And I correctly tell them it's not, people just look at my last name, it's spelled Jeon. And they're like, oh, is it Jeon or John? I'm like, no, it's Chun, because in Korean, every last name is one syllable, and I always correct them. So yeah, and I've learned to, at times when I want to get offended, I want to, instead of getting offended, I change my attitude to instead encourage them and educate them, right? Because I'm hoping that their next encounter will be better. And it has been with a lot of my patients.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing. Definitely, like, racial biases are like learned, and you can always like unlearn them and stuff. And I really appreciate all the commitment you have to serving your patients and just educating them on how to approach people a lot better. I'm going to pass it on to Caitlin now.
I'll be going on to the next few questions, which are directly from our audience through Instagram. First, what's the best skincare advice you can share with us?
Oh my gosh. The best skincare advice is, I wish I can go back to college and high school, and I wish I wore sunscreen. I think your generation is a lot better because TikTok is like crazy about skincare, and I think you guys are better equipped for everything. But the importance of sunscreen, I am terrified to see my skin when I'm 80 and 90, because I know I'm gonna have the worst sunspots because I fried my skin to the bone throughout high school and college. Um, so, and I know, like, college budgets, the last thing you care about is buying a $300 serum, which you guys do not need to, right? Um, so sunscreen is the most important thing. And two, if you have like acne, acne breakouts, or, and you're trying these over the counter treatments and nothing is working, my honest opinion is yes, TikTok is great because people are really educating you. There are board certified dermatologists and board certified PAs like me, or nurse practitioners that can give you advice. But acne, like I said, or acne is a disease. It's really a skin disease, and you really can't treat it on your own, especially if it's getting worse. So it may be worth, going to see a board certified dermatology provider to get their honest opinion, because there isn't much you can do, and you can try certain things, but everyone's skin is different, and that's why skincare is so individualized. But sunscreen, and don't just listen to TikTok skincare advice, because it's great. Like my advice, I try to make it very generic, but I always try to insert, like, if your skin's getting worse, you need to see a provider. It's worth the visit.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. My next question is kind of regarding like the PA profession, but a lot of people talk about like lateral mobility and being able to switch specialties. So our question is like, how easy is it to switch specialties?
Yeah. So the one great thing with the PA profession, I do agree, is that lateral mobility. I think that's a newer term. I like didn't hear it until some student told me. It just sounds cool. But yes, so you are able to switch specialties. Like for instance, for me, I worked in pediatric ears, nose, and throat. I worked with 8 different head and neck surgeons, other PAs and MPs. We call each other like APPs, or advanced practicing providers. And it was a great experience. I got to work in a children's hospital, the biggest one in my state, and learned so much. But then I want to try dermatology, and then now I'm in dermatology. So I think it's really neat because if you don't like your specialty, like I thought I would always end up in peds. I realize I love kids, but I don't know if I'm the right person to work with kids, right? Because I ended up seeing a lot of really sick kids. It started really affecting me. And now I work in dermatology, where I work with not just a limited like group, but like all age ranges. I love my job. So I think it's easy to switch specialties, but I will say that the longer you stay in one particular specialty, it's kind of hard to jump into a different one, right? There are a few specialties where I think you're more fluid to bounce around in. So if you worked in emergency medicine and then you want to work in family practice, I think that's doable because you see a lot of common things. You can take a lot from like that field to the other. But if you worked in OBGYN for 10 years and then all of a sudden you wanted to do, I don't know, like radiology or something really like specialized, it's it's doable. People can do it, but there is a lot of studying and you have to start from like a level where you really don't know anything. And so I think it's easier to do in your earlier years, but not, I guess there is some work you have to put behind it. A lot of training, a lot of time, some harder days than more often you would expect. If that makes sense.
If there was anything you wish you knew before you chose to go into dermatology.
I wish I knew more about dermatology than what I learned in school, because I would have tried harder to get into the field. So people, even my advisors, a few of them were like, you're not gonna like derm, you're meant for surgery, like you should do something more high intense. And that's what I thought I was gonna be. Like I loved Grey's Anatomy growing up. I thought I was gonna be the next Christina Yang, PA Audrey, and like do cardiac cases. And then I realized, I was like, man, like, I don't think surgery is what I want to do. And in my head, I was like, oh, derm is probably just like all just like skin, like skincare, like acne. Like I want something that's kind of, I don't want to lose a lot of my other skills I learn. But I will tell you guys this, like dermatology encompasses the whole body. And I feel like I use every single aspect of medicine I learned throughout PE school in this field, definitely more than my other position in PT&T. And so it's a lot more than just like Botox and fillers. There's so much medicine behind it. We use a lot of these really serious medications that I learned in PE school that I thought I would never use. But now I manage these medications like every day. I'm reviewing blood work for like half of my patients on these medications. So I'm keeping up with those skills. And it's a lot more than what you see on like TV or on like TikTok. It's a really great field. It encompasses a lot of medicine, more than you expect.
All right, thank you so much. I'll pass it on to Kara for the final question.
Okay, so our final question is, what is one piece of advice you would give to aspiring pre-health professionals that will be listening to this podcast?
One advice. So my one advice would be that to be okay with the fact that you're going to mess up, right? I messed up a lot in college. I didn't always make the best decisions. There was, my application was not perfect. And that's okay. And I feel like a lot of people, when they start applying to medical school, dental school, PA school, nursing school, even like law school, whatever it may be, like you're like our harshest critic is ourselves. And I want you to know that everyone's application has some flaw. And if it doesn't have a flaw, then there's something wrong with you, right? So if you get a C in a course, or you messed up your freshman year, and something happened, like make those experiences, like make it empower you, and like change that narrative, and like bring it up in your application, because they're going to talk about it, right? So I think if you own that one flaw like up front, then the application committee, they're going to applaud that and see how much you've grown. So don't be discouraged and think that you can't apply because you messed up in whatever you did, whether it's grades or social life or whatever.
Thank you for sharing. I know, like, being pre-med or pre-health in general, a lot of people are scared to mess up or fear of failure, but I definitely think like hearing you talk shows that messing up and maybe failing once or twice is definitely like part of the process.
Yes, it is, as long as you learn from your mistakes.
Yes, absolutely. And then to Caitlin now.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, well, that will be all for this podcast. Thank you so much, Audrey, for being here with us today and providing such wonderful insights to your career and to your journey. To our audience, please make sure to follow Puso podcast on SoundCloud and also watch our video on YouTube. Be sure to follow Audrey at Audrey the PA on Instagram and TikTok and spread some of that Puso love. Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Swear you came down like a comet. You be all